But in our first hour, I want to take on this issue that is in many ways, I think, growing beyond the bounds of simply a gun debate. And Eric Pratt is with us. He's the communication director for Gun Owners of America. He's Larry Pratt's son, the executive director, who's been on our program many times. Gunowners.org is the website. And Eric, first of all, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Tom, for having me.
Glad to have you with us. And let's first of all, the thing that put this on the radar, I suppose, is the headlines that the Mexican drug cartels are using weapons that were purchased in American gun shows and things like that, and the recent murder of this guy in Pennsylvania of 3 cops with an AK-47. I'm wondering, in your mind, what's this guy doing with an AK-47, and what are your thoughts on the appropriateness of that, or for that matter, of these same kinds of assault weapons making their way south of the border?
Well, I guess in terms of the guns that are turning up in the Mexican cartels, it turned out that the figures that were being thrown around, 90% coming from the United States, et cetera, just simply weren't true. Under further investigation, they found that actually that when the Mexican government wasn't giving us all the guns to trace, and so it was really a small minority of the weapons that they were uncovering. In fact, the real figure was less than 20%. But whatever the figure, it was kind of incredulous to think that drug dealers were coming across the border, waiting in lines at gun shows, and bringing back, millions of dollars or worth of firearms. That just didn't quite it makes more sense to believe that maybe the guns that are turning up are guns that actually our government has sent into Central America to militaries and different police.
All the way back to Iran-Contra. I don't disagree at all.
As these people defect, or as they try to make a quick dollar or peso.
Sure. No, I'm sure that there's a huge underground market there. I don't disagree with you at all, Eric. And the larger question, though, I think, is why is the northern and southern hemispheres of North and South America so heavily militarized, whereas Europe, for example, is hardly militarized, and they have 1/7 our murder rate. Again, the question: this guy who decided that he had to take out some liberals. You read some of the writings of some of these folks. John Bostet, the guy who went into the Unitarian Church. Atkinson was the guy who was the shooter, and he said there are a lot of people who hate liberals, and I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. The only way we can rid ourselves of this evil is to kill them in the streets, kill them where they gather. I'd like to encourage other like-minded people to do what I've done. If life ain't worth living, then don't just kill yourself. Do something for your country before you go kill liberals. What are these people doing with AK-47s?
Well, gun
and assault weapons
are not going to keep them from getting that. But just to correct one thing that you said, Europe's murder rate is only 1/7 of ours if you exclude over the last century the number of murders committed by governments against their own people.
In other words, war.
No. I'm talking about like gassing people, burning people,
sure.
the ovens. We haven't had that in our country, thank God, and I think in large part it's to the fact that we do have a right to keep firearms.
Okay, that brings me to the larger question. Here's the argument that is made, and let me just lay this out, and maybe we have an interesting point of agreement or an interesting point of disagreement. In 1928, the liberal German government, the Weimar Republic, passed a gun registration law that required people that basically registered guns the way that we register cars here in the United States. When the Nazis took power in the early 30s, they basically stopped renewing permits, and in 1938 they said, they even passed a law that said Jews couldn't own firearms and people under 18 couldn't. And then the Nazis proceeded to wipe out the Jews, as you just pointed out, and the gun owners in the United States are very much on this thing. These T-shirts, the picture of Obama, picture of Hitler, and the statement Hitler gave good speeches too, just selling like hotcakes at the gun shows. At the same time, we see this headline this morning on Drudge, one of the right-wing news sources. Rasmussen says only 53% of Americans prefer capitalism over socialism. And Glenn Beck goes on TV sobbing about how he fears for his country. You've got Michael Savage calling Obama a fascist and a dictator. The conflation of all this is that somehow calling for national health care and higher taxes on the rich equals socialism, and that socialism somehow equals Nazism and communism. And I would submit to you that that is a step over which is a line over which we step at extreme risk to ourselves and our society, and is toxic and destructive. How do we stop this, unless you disagree with me? Because I don't think that we're Germany in 1928. And I don't think Barack Obama is another Adolf Hitler.
Yeah, you've covered quite a bit of history and a lot of issues, but just bringing it back to you pointed out, I thought very well, how registration in Germany eventually led to confiscation and then the abuse and genocide of a certain amount of people. And I agree that that is not America in today. However,
well, can I just toss one thing in here, Eric?
Sure.
Not contentiously. Most historians also agree that Hitler's disarming of the Jews wasn't a large factor in the Holocaust, and that, in fact, the first thing that he did was he took away free speech rights, free assembly rights, and privacy rights. He was opening mail, people's mail. He was listening to their communications. He was spying in on groups. People were not allowed to assemble freely. They had radio shows where you would call up and denounce your neighbors. This was happening in the early 30s and the mid-30s. All these things happened before the 1938 gun ban. And so I would submit to you that if you and I are concerned about the direction our country is going, this republic is going, that we should be, long before we worry about whether or not our guns are being taken away, we should be concerned about our free speech rights being taken away, about our rights to assembly being taken away, and in particular about our right to privacy being taken away.
Actually, we have a lot of agreement there, Tom, and I don't think it's an either-or situation. I think we do need to be, fighting things like the National ID Card / Real ID Act and
FISA.
Exactly. We need to be concerned about privacy and First Amendment rights and Second Amendment rights. So I agree. I mean, it is a whole ball of wax, if you will, that we have to protect and not just select parts of it.
So how do we, Eric, then take this out? Because typically when people like you on the right as an advocate of gun ownership, and me on the left, who frankly I have no problem with gun ownership, when I've told your father, whenever I go back to Michigan, my brother Steve owns a whole bunch of guns. He and his significant other Tammy, and we go out on the shooting range and competitively shoot. I mean, I've been doing this for years with my brother. My kids have all been on shooting ranges, and they've shot everything from AK-47s to 22 pistols. Typically, we get into these things, and it's a beat each other up. How do we bring the right and the left together in this broader concern, rather than just trying to make this about beating each other up? But I'm sorry, we have about 45 seconds left here.
Well, I think ultimately it comes back to, okay, how do we stop these things? The shootings in New York, the shootings in Pittsburgh. And I would say first we need to realize that these shootings also happen in countries with strict gun control. Germany had a mass shooting last month. Mumbai, India. Both of these countries with very strict gun control didn't prevent their mass shooting. So how do you stop it? I think you do it in the way that Colorado did a couple of years back, when a guy came in with over 1,000 rounds of ammunition strapped on his back, wanting to kill hundreds of people. It was a lady with a concealed carry weapon, one of the worshipers at the church, who took him out. She saved hundreds of people's lives. And I think encouraging that, the way many states now, over 40 states have, allowing people to carry firearms, I think that's the answer, allowing the victims to answer back. Allowing
responsible people to have carry permits.
Absolutely.
A variation on an armed society is a polite society. I am not going to totally disagree with that statement, and we'll leave it at that. And Eric, thanks. Eric Pratt, gunowners.org.
Thank you, Thom.
Hey, thanks, Eric.
Thank you so much.